Hi, everyone. It's Paul Manna here in Williamsburg, Virginia, coming to you with another episode of Democracy in 5 Minutes. Thanks for joining me today. Last week on the show, we began discussing the value of efficiency and how it plays out in democracies, especially in systems like the United States, where power is fragmented across the different branches of government and also across the national government and the states. From that discussion, we concluded that having a strong commitment to democratic values like checks and balances can make it hard for democracies to act efficiently as they try to produce valuable outcomes for their people. Often, though, when people criticize the government for being inefficient, they aren't thinking of structural things like the shared power between Congress, the president, and the courts. Rather, they often have in mind the bureaucrats who work in thousands of government bureaucracies across the country. People often say, those are the parts of the government that are really inefficient and are wasting tax dollars. I'm sure you've heard complaints like that, and perhaps you've even made those complaints yourself from time to time. Today I want to explore those critiques by putting the bureaucracies and the bureaucrats in a larger context. My goal is for you to better understand a key source of inefficiency in government bureaucracy that people typically ignore, namely the nation's commitment to democratic values embedded in the Constitution. Let me begin the conversation then with an idea that might surprise you. The vast majority of inefficiency in the bureaucracy, I would argue, is a direct result of the decisions that elected officials make, not the decisions or values of bureaucrats themselves. That may seem like a startling claim, but you can understand why this is the case when you recognize the origins of the bureaucracy and the source of its power. Bureaucracies exist because elected officials create them to do things. Agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Labor, Department of Defense, the IRS, these organizations all exist because Congress wrote laws that brought them to life. Further, not only does Congress create bureaucracies, but it then writes additional laws that give these bureaucracies their mandates to act. The law itself is the source of the bureaucracy's power. Its purpose is to carry out the laws that Congress has passed and that the President has signed into existence. Taking those ideas and laying them alongside some of our earlier discussions from episode 4 about democratic guardrails and episode 12 about efficiency and democracy hopefully helps you begin to see a major potential source of inefficiency in government and the bureaucracies that do the work of government. Laws, remember, are based on compromise and the balancing of many competing interests. That's the spirit of pluralist democracy that we have here in the United States. The whole point of creating systems of shared power across government is so that many voices get heard and that a single authoritarian leader can't dominate. Yet, at the same time, as legislators and presidents try to satisfy lots of different constituents, it can sometimes create really challenging laws to carry out as they try to do their work. Consider this example to illustrate the idea, the scenario of the government building a new road or a new highway. When the U.S. Department of Transportation works with state departments of transportation, we want to get new highways built swiftly to serve the people, right? That seems like the main goal. But that isn't the only goal involved here. Federal law also requires states, as they carry out these projects, to create processes so that all businesses have opportunities to compete for the work through competitive contracting, processes so that the public has opportunities to review plans for new highways and offer comments on them. So businesses run by veterans might get preferences in the contracting process. So projects themselves don't create environmental hazards that will pollute drinking water or valuable habitats where people hunt and fish. And so the processes so that the actual road designs meet important safety standards to minimize the risk of accidents. Building roads is one valued outcome among these many other valued outcomes on this list. Now, in last week's episode, remember, we said that efficiency is a ratio of valued resources used to valued outcomes produced for the people. What these examples show today is that Congress actually establishes many different valued outcomes for bureaucracies to focus on. People might see only the road that's being built as the main value, while forgetting that building a road is only part of a larger menu of what the law requires the bureaucracy to do. What looks like inefficiency then might simply be bureaucracies carrying out the law that elected officials have written so that many possible outcomes and objectives are accomplished. So, what can you do with the information from today's discussion? I would encourage you to use it to expand your thinking about how government bureaucracies operate so you can better see the many competing pressures coming at bureaucrats from the American democratic system. In offering that advice, I'm not trying to say that government bureaucracies are never inefficient based on their own actions, or they can't operate to increase efficiency. I'm not trying to go that far with my claims today. What I am saying, though, is that there are many different sources of inefficiency. Sometimes we have to live with at least some of it as we try to uphold other democratic values that we cherish. Just like I've said in other episodes, government could work much more swiftly if we had only a single leader in charge of everything. An order could come down from the king to build a highway using a certain company with no worries about safety or public input, and the work could begin immediately. But that's not how we operate in the representative democracy of the United States. So think about these things when you notice inefficiency in government agencies. It might be that the bureaucracy is the problem, but it also might be that the problem is coming from the nation's system of fragmented powers where politicians write laws and direct the bureaucracy to accomplish many different goals simultaneously. So that's where we'll wrap up today, folks. Next week, I want to continue discussing bureaucracies and bureaucrats themselves. There have been some important policy changes recently at the federal level regarding how these people are hired, and so I want to get into that in more detail. I'll look forward to that conversation with you all next week, and until then, I hope you take good care, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.